I want to cover transporting a little bit. We're out here, we're going to try to do it between showers here today. But when you transport your horses, there's a procedure I think you need to go through that for safety reasons. Everybody does this differently. First thing you want to do has nothing to do with horsemanship. Come over here, Brandon, and you check your tires before you go anywhere. You look at that hitch and make sure everything's hooked up correctly. This is my truck and trailer, and it's served me well for a lot of years, but I have good tires on it. And when I stop at a rest area or I stop to get fuel, I get out and I touch these hubs like this. And if that thing's hot, you better be finding you a trailer place in a hurry. Let that thing cool down, because that thing will burn and that'll get hot and you got problems, okay? And the right guy knows what he's doing. He can put grease in those caps and repack those bearings. But one thing, just an old truck driver trick, if you take your foot and you kick each tire, you should hear the same tone. So if I kick this tire and this one says, it's a different tone. Well, that tells me this one's got a little different tire pressure in it. So if you read on the side of your tires, it'll say there maximum air pressure, say 60 pounds, minimum 35. Then go 50, 55, because when that tire gets hot, it'll expand. Don't give it maximum, because you get out in the middle of Texas somewhere and that road's 150 degrees hot, that thing's going to pop, okay? Check your hitch, check your lights, make sure everything works correctly. You know, another pointer, don't ever put steel belted radial tires on your trailer. Get, what you call it, they're not steel belted, but they're cord. You know, it's a trailer tire made for trailers. What you don't want to do is, if you have steel belted tires on that trailer and that thing pops going down the road, that steel in that tread, that thing's going to flop. That's going to pull this fender off, and it's going to slap the side of your trailer, and it's going to get you in more trouble than you can get out of and make it look right. So what I find, if you just get a regular bias ply, nothing fancy trailer tire, and get the good ones. If you've got 6-ply tires for $110 and you can get the 8 plies for $165 and get the 10 plies for $185, get the heavier ply tires like this. Keep an eye on that. Make sure they match up nice. Make sure they're pumped up right. Before you go anywhere, you check those tires. When I stop, kick those tires, touch those bearings, make sure they're not warm. It'll save you a lot of headache. It's a lot easier to check that than it is to fix tires along the road. All right, what we're going to do now is, most of my horses, I use a stock trailer. That's my preference. Where, you know, some guys, my wife has a slant load trailer, and most people have slant loads, or they have straight loads. But you know what you got to do, what we talked about. Let me tie this back. What we want to do is, the whole trailering process is kind of like the blacksmith and the feet deal. You know, it's been a violent time for a horse. It's been an anxious time a lot of times, and we got to back off, and we got to melt that all down and make it a pleasurable experience for him. Where this should be a sanctuary for him. He should not fear the trailer, because this is a big part of his life. Just like picking his feet up and trimming his feet, or just like clipping him. It's a big part of his life. And if he doesn't do this right, there's not much else he can do, okay? So we're going to come like this, and we're going to walk him up on the trailer. All right, come up in here, Brandon. I'll show you. And like in a stock trailer, I'm going to take him, I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to tie that knot that I showed you in one of my other videos. I'm going to bring my rope like this, and I'm going to tie him like this. I'm going to come like this, or sometimes I'll bring the tail of that rope back like this, okay? And the reason for that is when I come in to get him, to unload, I can just reach here and get my rope, okay? And I can pull that rope like this. See, now I can take my finger, move him over, okay? And I'm going to back him out, Brandon, okay? Now, if you watched my earlier videos, this battle was won and lost out in that round pen with my little piece of plywood. So you need to watch that video preparing him. Now, I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing him off this trailer. I'm going to back him off the trailer, okay? Now notice he's looking for the edge. That's okay. He can look. Whoa, Petey, easy. When you get to the edge, just be calm. Take your time. Now let's step off. Ooh, easy, Petey. Come on. There we go. Now, sometimes it's, if you've got a horse that gets sticky like that, step him back on. Come on. Come on, Petey. Come on. And stop him halfway. Whoa. And just stand here. Okay? Just stand here. It's all right. Take your rope, fold it over, and just rub him. Step him off. Now, a big mistake people make is, say you get to the trailer and your horse doesn't want to load. Well, the first thing they do is they turn around and they go like this. And they look at him. Well, watch what happens when I do that. When I look back, that's pushing energy that way. But when I come like this, okay. So what you want to do when you load your horse, you want to walk up on there like you're going to town. Just don't even look back and don't even think about what's happening, okay? So we're just going to not even look at him. We're going to walk forward just like this. And when we're working on it, you know, you don't have to time, but we're going to stand up here. We're going to take our time. We're going to let him know that everything's all right. This is not a place to be afraid of. Okay? Now, one thing that I see a lot in people's trailers, and I see this a lot in trailers, are these little tie things you buy at the tack store, these little short little daubs of rope with a snap on them you hook up. I don't have any because I've hopefully gotten rid of all of them. But the problem with that is if you tie this horse in a way where he can't stand comfortably, okay? You want to be able to tie him with enough slack in the rope where he can hold his head and he can ride comfortably and balance himself. So as that trailer shifts around and you go around curves and you stop and different things, if you got his head tied up, he cannot balance himself, okay? So if I got his head tied clear up here to some little ring clear up there, but and his head's up, he can't balance himself. So what you want to do is I want to tie him in a way, even if my ring's up high, I want my rope to have a little bit of loop in it, okay? I want loop in that rope to where he can't get his leg over it, get caught, but I want him to be able to stand comfortably. And I don't want him to be able to turn around or get in mischief up here, okay? Where another thing you don't want to do is you don't want to use those elastic type bungee cord things. Man, I will tell you one time we had a horse that was on a lady's trailer and she opened the back door and that horse backed off and that rubber strap was still hooked up. Well, that horse stretched that thing out about 5 feet and that thing's like a gun ready to go off. The mare sits back on that thing like that and there's this thing stretched out. And I look at everybody and I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do now. Because if that thing breaks, that's going to hit like a rocket, hit you in the side of the head. It's going to hit the horse is going to fall. It's a bad situation. If you tie that horse to where if he gets down, he's got enough slack in his rope and you tie the appropriate knot where I can reach in there and untie him, I found that to be much more satisfactory. I mean, I've even taken the tail of the rope and laid it on the outside of the trailer, okay? So, next subject is leg wraps. I don't put leg wraps on anything because I don't feel it's necessary. In 35 years, I haven't had trouble. You know, people come here and they spend a half an hour putting leg wraps on their horse. Well, what I found with any type of equipment like that, like splint boots, leg wraps, all that stuff, it gets the horse to where he doesn't feel where his legs are. And he'll actually hit himself more with all that. Where, you know, if he steps on himself and he feels that, he knows not to do that next time. And so I've just found that all that leg protection business, I mean, I can think of one time in 35 years that a horse got hurt up in the trailer that I hauled, and it was just, I had some kind of unruly sale barn horse in there that was kicking and carrying on and wasn't finished, and probably shouldn't have been on the trailer to start with. But even that horse, after it was conditioned properly, was fine, you know. So I just can't overemphasize how sometimes you can overdo this and overthink it. Where another problem is if your horse pawls in the trailer as you're traveling. What I do if my horses get unruly or they're pawing in the trailer, I just take and put my brakes on. Kind of knock him off balance a little bit, stop him. He's not to paw up in there, he's not to be unruly, he's to stand peaceably up in that trailer and obediently. And just take your brakes and just whew, like this. He'll quit pawing after a few doses of that. And don't let him do it, correct him. You're correcting him just like you were if you was riding him or you're working with him out here. He's not to be unruly in this trailer. You know, I see people putting hay bags and water buckets and everything in there, and like when we travel cross country, we'll put a hay bag in, and that's okay. But I found myself at the truck stop with my pocket knife cutting their feet out of that hay bag that they get in there and get their feet caught, or they get their head caught in that thing. So you got to be careful what you use. And what I'd recommend, if you tie a hay bag up in, get a little piece of twine or something and tie it, where if he does get caught, he can break that down and have it to where he doesn't get himself entangled going down the road. But you know, it's really not necessary. Like watering your horse going down the road, I wouldn't do it if you're traveling within 100 or 2 miles. If I'm going cross country, I'll stop a couple times a day and try to water my horse. But usually the water at those truck stops, the place has got so much chlorine in it, he doesn't want to drink it anyhow. But it's good to, you know, satisfy your conscience. You offered him the water. But normally when a horse travels, he kind of gets in a dormant state. And it's amazing. He doesn't want to drink, and he really doesn't want to eat a whole lot. So now, you know, another thing that you want to do is when you're trailering that horse, don't feed him any grain. Just feed him hay, and get some good green hay. Keep his bowels loose a little bit. You know, you're not going to get the colic. We had a horse colic one time trailering, and I think it's just sometimes you try to do too good a job. And like when we sell a horse and we're shipping him across country, well, for a day or so before he leaves, I just put him on straight hay, because that hay, the strands in that hay are long, and that gets in his intestinal system, and he seems to be able to pass that better. And so, you know, just feed your horses hay as you're traveling. And if it's real cold, go ahead and put a blanket on him, that's okay. But if the weather's mild, don't put a blanket on him to trailer him. He'll get sweaty up in here and hot. I mean, they put off a lot of heat up in the trailer, and they'll get sweaty and hot. There's no need for that. Like if it's 0 or 10 degrees, sometimes we'll put a blanket on him to haul him. But you got to be careful, because if you get him sweaty up under that blanket and it's cold, then you're going to get him sick. So, you know, the main thing, another thing I do is I have a little first aid kit. It's like an old toolbox that I put leg wraps, and I put some bute and banamine in, and just a few odds and ends, a pair of nippers and a hammer and a few shoe nails and things like that. Where we had an accident one time years ago with a horse. Unfortunately, nobody got hurt. But that really sobered me up a little bit about that subject, where, you know, if something would have happened, I had nothing with me that day. And but, you know, leg wraps, you know, if you get a wound or something, you can heal up, or some blood stop. That little powder stuff is a good thing. But You know, everybody worries about first aid kits for humans, but you need to have a first aid kit for your horse when you're traveling too. It's good business to have it. Have you a little ramp thing you buy at Tractor Supply to pull your wheel up on to change your spare. Get you a little T-wrench for, I know they're about 10 bucks. Keep that in the trailer. Don't loan it to anybody. Leave it on the trailer all the time. A lot of times, a couple times a year, I'll take my WD-40 and I'll go along and I'll spray all my lug nuts. And I'll spray all the moving parts on the hinges and all on my trailer. And I keep my trailers in good shape. And I always make sure your spare's got air in it, because if it's flat, it won't do any good along the road either. So, you know, with that little bit right there, that's what it's taken me a lot of years to learn the hard way. But if you trailer like that, and when we load them on a stock trailer, we just line them up with their heads facing that way, about 2 feet apart down through here. A lot of times we'll haul them with their saddles on. It's okay. Just loosen your girth up, step them up on there, and they'll ride fine if you're not going too far. That way you don't have to tack when you get there, and you don't have to worry about hauling all those saddles in the back of the truck or whatever. So, you know, it's okay to haul him with a saddle on if you're not going too far. So if I think of anything else, we'll have another video on it, but that's enough to get you started. I plan to do a video on problem horses to load, because that's a whole different story in itself. But I wanted you to see the proper way to do it before we get into some of the problem solving. So Petey's been taught to cast out there. Now sometimes I'll walk him off the trailer, which is kind of cheating, but that's okay. We'll do it sometimes. So, you know, in a nutshell, that's basically how I transport a horse. It's worked well for me. I haven't had any troubles, no accidents, no injuries that I can think of for a long time. But that's how we do it. Thank you.